Hello, everyone. Welcome to Boomer Has It. I'm Jim Jalamas, coming to you from the Twisted Spine bookstore. It's New York City's horror bookstore, and it's right here in Williamsburg. And we have a special show tonight. But first, who do we have in London?
Hi, JB Miller here in London in my apartment.
And following our podcast about British royalty, we're trading King Charles III for a man who truly reigns over the crime thriller. Our very first guest, Charles Salzberg. Charles is a veteran journalist and author of the five-part Henry Swann crime series. And what makes his books so compelling is that Henry Swann is a skip tracer, a professional who locates people who don't want to be found, like people with very, very, very bad credit or a court witness or a missing person. So a hearty welcome to Charles Salzberg here on Boomer Has It.
Thanks. Hi, guys. You left out the most important thing, and that is that I am a three-time nominee for the Seamus Award, and I lost all three times. So I'm going after the Susan Lucci record for author of the Seamus Award.
Good one. Okay.
We'll be anxiously waiting, Charles.
Yes. Great.
Charles Lucci.
Charles, it's great to have you on board as our first guest. And as you are a king of crime, what we want to ask you is why has crime captivated society and absorbed itself into all forms of media, starting with podcasts and their adaptations, even dramatic series, which are based on fictitious podcasts like Only Murders in the Building. But it feels like crime and true crime have just taken over the culture. How has that happened?
Well, first of all, you're giving me a headache really early in the morning, asking me to think about these things. But I think it's because everyone has either committed a crime, big or small, fantasized about committing a crime, and planned a crime in their mind. And so I think that's why. And the other thing about most crime novels is the formula is this: the world is fine, then something happens to turn this world upside down, and then either the detective or the cop or the lawyer or whoever it is, it's their job to put the world back in order again. So, when you have these true crime like Dateline and 48 Hours and 2020, that's exactly what happens. There's a crime, it turns people's world upside down, and then it's solved usually, almost always actually, because I wrote my first crime novel, and I didn't mean it to be a crime novel, was Swann's Last Song, and the innovation was that the skip tracer, Henry Swann, follows all these clues throughout the book. And when he finishes, following all these clues, it turns out that the crime had nothing to do with any of these clues. It was completely random.
Huh.
And so the reader finds out who committed the crime, the murder, but the detective, in this case Swann, has nothing to do with solving the crime. And I sent the book around, and everyone, agents, editors, said, "We love this book, but we can't publish it because your detective doesn't solve the crime." And readers of crime fiction want the crime solved by the protagonist. And so I finally gave up. And 20 years later, I thought, well, maybe everything has changed. And I sent it to an editor, and he said, "I love this book, but not with this ending." And so I changed the ending so that he does solve the crime. I paid, so the lesson there was, I caved in. I did what publishers wanted. And so I think that kind of proves my point is that people want conclusions. They want the world to get back in order, and that's what crime fiction does, most of it, or practically all of it. So that's the only answer I can come up with this early.
You said
Fair enough.
everyone, what were your 3 points? Everyone wants to commit a crime? Was that one of them?
No, no, I said either everyone has committed a crime, and I'm talking about if you take a pencil from work, you're, without permission, or jaywalking in many cities, you're committing a right, yeah. um, or fantasized about it, or fantasized about committing a crime. And they are people are just fascinated by that, by doing something wrong that they don't get punished for.
But they're also so, again, your lesson is also that readers, audiences are really engaged in finding a conclusion, but I think that also means they're really committed to the main character. I mean, you have to have a nice, strong main character like Henry Swan for audiences to stick with it.
Except some people would that's very true of my work. I'm very character oriented, but there's another kind of for people people either love the characters or they love plots. So a good plot will keep people reading too. My problem with
True.
the plot is that I'm not a really good plotter. I'm much better with character, and I think character is more important. And people, when you think about it, they connect with characters. And I've had this happen too. I've read a book 5 years ago. I can't remember the plot necessarily, but I remember the character.
Yes, that's sort of how it is with a lot of the greatest detective fiction is
Yeah, and
the
but
plot escapes you, but the character is so vivid
exactly
and that it keeps you reading.
right. Unless you've got something like Black Sunday, which was about the super really high concept where they're going to blow up the Super Bowl and you have to stop them. In those kind of thrillers, I don't think character means as much as it does in other
Is
kinds
this
of
mostly plot oriented?
yeah.
So Charles, I mean, the question is why crime and true crime now? Because presumably people have always wanted solutions, and people have always wanted things to kind of work out and be solved. So now it seems that um, crime and true crime and cozy crime, which we could talk about later, seems to be the sort of preeminent, one of the most preeminent genres in our culture today.
Well, one reason I think is the availability, and that is when I was growing up, there were 3 channels on, there 3 major channels on television. So, now you've got cable, you've got, streaming services, um, and so there may have been as much interest back then, but there were you couldn't access true crime. And I think if I had to, point to an event that really, uh, made true crime as popular as it is, I think it was Truman Capote's In Cold Blood. Um, I think that was probably the at the time, and we had I think it was after the Joe McGinnis book about the murders by McDonald murders. I think that came after Cold Blood. So, and then we had the Executioner's Song, after. And so I think that opened the door to true crime. And again, there are more places that you can, watch it. Uh, Netflix, Prime or whatever. It's all about true crime and crime. And
So
that's just because people
so
have
with Truman Capote, Joe McGinnis, and Norman Mailer, we're going back 40 years now. So this is something that's been bubbling under the surface
I think so.
and had an opportunity to explode with the internet.
Yeah, and I think the more publicity, for instance, probably the first big case that took over besides the Lindbergh kidnapping was the Black Dahlia. I mean, newspapers picked up that story, and it just they never let go of it.
Really gruesome, graphic,
Yeah,
horrible murder.
mhm.
Yeah, right. Um,
Still writing
well,
about
that yeah, because
Still
that
writing about it and portraying it
yeah,
in film and television.
I
mhm,
mean,
That's
that was
right.
never solved,
right.
unlike the other ones. That's an unsolved murder.
Mhm,
Executioner's Song, and In Cold Blood and the Joe McGinnis were all solved murders, right? So Black Dahlia continues to interest people. Do you think there's also an aspect of everyone now feels that they could solve a crime on their own? I mean, that's the premise of only crimes in the
yes,
build only murders in the building.
I
You know,
do, and I think also one of the ones I forgot that made true crime really popular was Joe Wambaugh. Joe Wambaugh, the ex-cop who wrote, Onion Field, which is I think is that was his first big seller, and then, the Charles Manson case. I mean, those they were big news on the news, and so more people had access to it, and they found that they really liked true crime. They liked this thing that was sort of outside their experience. And one of the things that about my books is I don't write detective novels where someone dies. Most of my novels there aren't any deaths, and even in Swann's last song, the only murder is the first one that occurs before the book even starts. You don't even see the murder. And the other book that I based on a true crime, Devil in the Hole, um, was, there's the murders all happen before the book even opens up. So I'm more interested, for instance, many of the Swann books they all have to do with crime, but they're minor crimes. And one of them, Swann dives in. You don't know what the crime is till halfway through the book. And by the end of the book, you're not even sure there was a crime.
Yeah.
So I'm more interested in those smaller crimes that more people can relate to, I think.
Is
Um,
it that that's very that's to me is very admirable because, it sort of proves that you can write something that's thrilling based on human complexity characters
mhm.
without having gunplay or a murder. But does it make your job harder
For
as
me,
a
it makes
mystery
it ea
writer?
well, for me, it makes it easier because, as I said, I'm not that I can't do things that have been done too many times before. So, I would have a hard time if you said I did one of my books, Canary in the Coal Mine, is kind of a murder mystery, but what moves the book along is not that murder, but it is very much in line with the old time, detective novels, where someone's murdered and the detective has to solve the crime. The I'm always looking for the different kinds of crime. I mean, I don't know if I'll ever write this book, but I wanna start a book where the crime is as jaywalking, the smallest crime ever. Because here in New York, it's not even illegal to jaywalk. It used to be, and how that can snowball into something bigger and bigger. Um, because to me, that's more within the experience of people like us. I mean, it's unlikely that the 3 of us are gonna murder anyone. Well, I hope not. But we
You say
might
that now.
we might cheat on our taxes or something like that. Not that any of us would or have. But those
I didn't.
yeah, I haven't either. I'm
I'm
much
gonna pay mine any year now.
yeah. When I made enough to a whole other story is what I made in 1 year where I made $11,000. That's what all I made that year. I got audited by the
Oh, no.
you and they
Oh,
came,
my adding insult to injury. My
and they
God.
my apartment twice, once with the supervisor, and at the
Ugh.
end we found out why, because someone at the IRS had entered twice everything I made that year. So, I got, let's say, $5,000 from Hearst, and, it was entered, and somehow they doubled it. They entered it twice.
Well, it's their fault.
It looked like I made $22,000 that year instead of $11,000, and
Yeah.
that's why they audited me, and so I had to
Wow,
go
that's a
2 days of that.
evil IRS. I think you should write that book, by the way, about the jaywalker, and you got
Mhm.
a great title, Jaywalker.
Yeah.
But,
That's
I would
JV
read
walking.
that book. What is there a tension between true crime and fictional crime? Are they very connected, or are they separate? Are
Very,
they
very connected. I'm very connected. With me, I'm usually inspired by a true crime. So I'll give you an example. Years ago, I read an essay in the New Yorker called "The Silver Thief," and it was about this guy who only he was a second he broke into houses, but he only stole silver. That's all he stole. And this stayed with me for a long time, this essay. And I was looking for a new book to write, and it was the beginning of the rise of Trump. and I wanted to write a book that had a little something, but not political, and Trump is not in it, but it had to do with this idea that America is, to me, um, they are totally absorbed in winning, which is what Trump wants, and they will do anything to win, anything. And so I created a second story, a thief at this point, who who is like he's the best ever. He's never been caught. He breaks into homes, very much like the silver thief. And I also so I based him on the silver thief and another thief called the dinner time bandit. And his thing was he only broke into homes during dinner time when people were home eating dinner. And his theory was this: if they're home, all the valuables are going to be home. And so while they were downstairs eating dinner, he would break in. He was very agile. He would climb up to the second floor where the bedrooms were, and he would steal the valuables. But
Yeah.
he only worked during dinner time. Uh,
Great. That's a great
so
premise.
I both those true things in answer to your question, and created a fiction, a novel around.
I can see how crime would be influenced by true crime, but has true crime ever been influenced by fictional crime?
Uh, I I'm sure it has. I mean, I can't give you particular cases, but because now what happens is murderer or whatever, they watch Dateline. They watch, the CSI and stuff like that. So they're much cleverer. So in that way, I think that true crime has affected, fiction and vice versa. Uh,
Mhm. They're very
but
connected.
yeah. See, I wanted to write a true crime book, and the problem was that the guy who committed it was never found while I was wanting to write this. He eventually was, found, and so I had to fictionalize it. But after a while, I realized writing true crime is a lot of work. I'm really lazy, and it's a lot of work to write a true book. You have to do all this research, you have to it's so much easier to stay
Yeah.
home.
To make it up. Easier to make it up, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
But you
absolutely.
still have to solve I mean, well, I guess I like the idea of not having, either a murder or solving a crime, because I could never solve a crime. Even when I read about crime, I can never figure out how they solved it. My wife is always having to explain the plots of movies. Actually, my daughter's always having to explain the plot of movies as we're watching them, and so I find it difficult
So
to
so
follow.
you're the annoying person in a movie theater who we always hear, "Hey, what was that? What happened? What?"
No, I always whisper that. I'm a very quiet one.
Uh,
"What's going on? Who's that guy? What's that guy doing?"
does it irritate the hell out of your wife and your kids when you do that?
No, I actually irritate them more when I pontificate on how that director had made 3 other films and, how this is influenced by Orson Welles, and, that annoys them even it doesn't annoy my daughter, it annoys my wife, but, my daughter yeah, um, but, the plot is difficult, and I was never very good at writing a plot. I would think cr crime fiction necessitates pretty good plotting. You said characters is important as plot. I
To
think,
me, it's more important for
more
me.
important.
For
Yeah,
me,
yeah. But you still would have a plot in the spine of
you
your
do.
book.
Oh, absolutely. But I'm one of those people, and I hate the term, but I don't know what's going to happen on the next page or the next sentence when I sit down to write. So
Yeah,
I don't know what's going to happen. It just comes to me as I'm writing. So, so in that regard, it's not a disdain for plot, but it doesn't really matter to me. But that you get a writer like Jeffrey Deaver, and I've interviewed him. He will write a 140-page outline of his book before he writes it, and he can't write it without that outline. To me, that would be not only pointless, uh, uh, I wouldn't wanna write the book after I, spent all that time outlining it. To me, surprise, even to me, is very important. Uh,
yeah, that
but
makes sense.
And I think that's what happens too, is you can feel as a reader when there's spontaneity in the writing,
I
as
hope so.
opposed to feeling very planned and outlined. I think that's easy to see in a book.
Yeah, and sometimes happen is magic. I'll give you an example from that book I mentioned, Second Story Man. Um, he the general plot is he's a master burglar. He's never been caught, and two guys team up to catch him. One of them is a Connecticut state investigator, and the other is uh, a Miami cop who's his name is Manny Perez. He's an ex-Cuban uh, cop in Miami who has been suspended, and he's been suspended having to do with this something that had to do with this second story man, Francis Hoyt. So they team up to find uh, Hoyt. And the book is told from 3 points of view. Each chapter is one of those guys. But, I had no idea if this guy was gonna be caught by them or not. And so I'm about 2/3 through the way through the book, and I get this idea of this guy's so brazen. He goes to the house of this Connecticut state investigator, and that's where the Miami cop is staying while they're teaming up. And he knocks on the door, and he introduces himself. And so, they can't arrest him for anything because they don't know anything. He hasn't done anything wrong that they caught him at. So he goes in and there's a conversation. And he's taunting these guys. And I'm writing the chapter, and I thought, I end the chapter, and I thought, wait a minute, what would a guy like this do in a situation like this? Well, this guy is so arrogant. You know something? He probably steals something from that house, right from underneath the eyes of the two guys who are trying to catch him. And so he does. He steals an ashtray, a silver ashtray. And after he leaves, they realize it, and they realize that he's stolen something from them. Well, I won't give it away, but this arrogant act of stealing from under the eyes of the two guys who are after him uh, ends in his downfall. That has to do with the ending of this one act that was very much within character of this guy gets him arrested. But I won't
His
say why and
arrogance
how.
was his Achilles heel.
Exactly.
Well,
And
that's
my
a good
point is
tagline.
yeah, and my point is that's or part of the point is that winning has its downsides too. I mean, it can wind up destroying you if you will do anything to win. It may very well lead to your downfall.
Well, if we're making parallels to our conservative government today, uh, let's have at it then. More winning, and let's see what happens.
What do you think, Charles, of cozy crime? Is that a British sort of
Yeah.
invention and introduction to the genre?
A few years ago, I was a judge for the Edgar Award, and so I had like 600, literally 600 novels sent to me.
Oh my god.
And, I hope millions listen to this, but I'm gonna deny anything that I say now. But within there's not a separate category for cozies. So I would get these cozies, and after a while, I thought, before I'd read any of them, I thought, I'm not gonna even read a book where there's an animal on the cover, or if it has a cute title like Pause and Order. Um, uh
Damn it, I was gonna call my next book
You know,
that.
because they come up with some really good, funny titles that they don't really mean to be, mocking, but I found them mocking because I thought, no matter what, I'm not gonna choose a cozy as the winner of the Edgar.
But, I mean, these sound extra cozy. Are these about animals that
Well,
you
there are
make
certain rules
stories?
about cozies. One of the rules is no blood. You're not gonna have a bloody crime scene. The other is that there's usually a pet involved, not in the crime, but in the book, like a cat or a dog or whatever, a and that it takes place in, it's really the most popular ones are the ones that take place in small towns or in libraries or some kind of or antique
right.
and
Old age homes,
right.
retirement community.
What is the crime usually? What kind
Well,
of crime is it?
usually almost always murder, but almost all of them have amateur detectives,
Right.
like
Oh, okay. Right.
Jessica, in that TV show that ran forever with Cove and, where she lived in, there were like more murders in that Cove, like hundreds of murder
Well, I thought
that
the
she had to.
plot I wouldn't move to, that building where Steve Martin and who's
Right.
it, the only murders in the building. That seemed to have a very high level of, death in a single building. Was Agatha Christie,
I,
cozy crime? I don't
yeah.
remember animals in her books.
No, but she wasn't. That was even before cozies, but she led to cozies, I think.
She was the entry point. She was
Yeah.
the,
But I
w
don't know. Listen, she wrote so many books, but I don't know
yeah,
if she really dealt ever with a serial killer, um, or something like that. But that she was, and I don't mean to denigrate cozies, but they do have a formula, um, and and people love them. They are incredibly popular, and
yeah,
maybe part of the popularity has to do with the amateur detective. Um, I
mm,
mean, Hercule Poirot is not a cozy, but
no. No, I read the, Thursday Murder Club, and it was for older people in a senior home who solve a couple of murders, and then it became a series, a cozy series.
right.
And, the plot seemed quite intricate. I never could have come up with something like that. Are crime writers using, the AI at all to figure out complicated plots?
I don't know if they are, but, I during the pandemic, I Zoomed with 4 other every Monday night, I Zoomed with 4 other crime writers,
Or the Monday Night
Reed
Murder
Farrell
Club?
yeah, Reed Farrell Coleman, Matt Goldman, Mike Wiley, and Tom Straw, and Tom and Matt were recovering, sitcom writers. Matt started his career on, Seinfeld, writing for Seinfeld, and,
Wow.
Tom wrote for, Night Court, almost every sitcom he has written for, and he was the showrunner for Nurse Jackie. Um,
So
and we
you were
talk about
funny film with a guy.
and we liked each other so much that we still Zoom every other Monday night. And we actually hang out together. We live in Reed lives in Long Island, Tom is in Connecticut, Matt is in Minneapolis, and Ike is in Florida. But when we go to these conferences together, we hang out together. And the other night, 2 of them were in town, so the 3 of us went to a steak joint in Grand Central. But the reason I bring that up is because we Zoom every other talk about things like AI. And to my knowledge, no one has used it, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do. They would admit it if they did.
Yeah, I don't know if they'd be the one wanting to admit it. I mean, I'd be surprised if it wasn't being used in crime fiction only because it's being used in everything else,
And as a matter
right?
of fact, when I first started, Mike went into ChatGPT and asked it to write a like 2 pages of a crime novel in each of our styles,
Oh, wow.
and it did, and it was really interesting. But the outset of the kind of the thing about that is, obviously, someone fed into ChatGPT, um, at least one of our books, because how else would they know what our
Yeah,
style.
they must have done, right. That's, a bit creepy to think that. I mean, everything about it's kind of creepy.
Right. But, I'm with you, JB. I would be surprised if someone hasn't tried it at the very
Yeah.
least.
I mean, I would imagine they're using AI to solve true crime,
Mhm.
right? Why would they use it to solve fake crime?
And probably the best use to me, of AI is medical. I
Yes, I agree. The good use of it in my book. They're going to be no more actors or screenwriters, or pretty soon that
well,
the
here
whole will be
here's something
transformed.
that's really sad. I have a new publisher now, and my old publisher went out of business, and I had done, 9 novels with them. and all 5 Swann novels were put on, are Audible, available in Audible. We sold the rights to those. But 4 my crime novels were not on Audible. So when I signed with this new publisher, Regalo, bringing out my new book, they said, "We will republish all your 9 novels." 'Cause I got the rights back, and they did. And they also said, "We will put the 4 novels that don't have audio versions yet, we will do audio versions of it." It was great. And they sent me one day, they sent me, like, 7 samples of voices to do the narration. They were all AI. So
Non-human narrator. Oh,
right, so
okay.
all those actors who made a living doing, books, Audible books, are out of
Yeah.
work now.
Yeah.
And
That's
I have to
sad.
say the voices were damn good. I mean, and they were all different. One was, Southern, accent and whatever. And so that's really sad, but that's how AI, at the very least, is going to
Yeah.
affect, because it's cheaper for them to use AI.
Yeah. Another actor out of business.
Yeah.
That's really, that's really unfortunate. I know Stephen Fry narrated the original, Harry Potter releases, and I think he made a fortune out of them because I think he had royalties, uh, and now they wouldn't need that. They wouldn't need
Just
to do well, that's sad. So, do you have
Now I'm
a
gonna cry.
do you have a list of some of your favorite,
Yes.
um
I did my homework. Jim gave me homework.
okay, we should explain. So we asked Charles to list his 10 favorite, um, what was it? Crime films and crime books? Is that
Yes,
what we asked him?
yes.
Okay.
Okay. And
Drum roll.
drum roll. Okay. I'll start with books. And the first one is going to surprise people, I think. My favorite crime novel is Lolita, which
Ooh,
people would think, wait, Lolita's not a crime novel. Of course it is. Humbert Humbert is a pedophile. He takes a young girl across state lines. To me, it's the ultimate crime novel. And so
Wow.
that's my favorite. That would be at the
wow,
top of my list.
great choice.
And
And very well
Profound and
written.
that's a profound and nuanced choice, Charles. That's why
Yes, that's
you're our
why we had
first
you
guest.
on.
that's why I've earned my keep with that one
Yeah, you
answer.
have.
Okay. So my others, I don't know if I actually came up with 10. There's probably going to be someone out there who's going to count them and say, "Wait a minute, he promised us 10 and there are only 8." Well, screw you if
Well,
you
maths, that's not our strong point. We're
No,
not all maths professors, for
right.
God's sake. How we supposed to know how many we have in a list? We're
Right.
writers.
That's right. Yeah. And we make our own rules.
We make our own rules. You can
Can we
say it
break 'em?
27.
Break them.
Okay, number
Okay.
2.
Alright. Well, number 2 is anything by Dashiell Hammett.
Mm.
I love the Continental Ops series. I love, Red Harvest. Then I would put In Cold Blood, mixing fiction with nonfiction, and The Executioner's Song. That would be on my list. And, I also, there's a California Light and Power. I hope I got the title right, by Don Winslow, which is really good. Um, and I know it Raymond Chandler, almost anything by him too. Um, the he's just
But
such a
you got the 2 pillars of hard-boiled detective novel
yeah,
writing.
yeah. And I like
Hammett.
I like some of the pulp writers like, Big Jim Thompson.
Mhm.
Kind of fun to read. So those would be my top 10 list. Films, there's one to me that's on the top, um, above everything else, and I know this is a little bit, controversial because there's always this thing, Goodfellas. I can
Mm.
watch Goodfellas once a week, and
Good
y
film. It's hard to argue with Goodfellas.
well, people will say if crime film, they're almost al they will almost always say The Godfather.
Oh,
Um,
I think I prefer, well, they're good, both good films, but,
yeah, but
Goodfellas.
years ago, I had, I was contacted by this guy, Joe Castone, and Joe was an undercover FBI, who had a book out already, Donnie Brasco. His mob
Oh,
name was,
right. Yeah.
and I had dinner with him, and so I got to ask questions, that I've always wanted to ask, and I asked him about that, and he said Goodfellas is the most realistic mob film ever. He said they got everything right, and it was based on real people. Obviously, Nick Legend wrote it about specific
It
people on it.
it also seemed to have more, influence than I think The Godfather had. If you think of The Sopranos was much more based on Goodfellas than anything, Coppola did. It wasn't Godfather is much more sort of operatic.
Mhm.
Goodfellas seemed
Absolutely. I have
Goodfellas the
I have
influence.
a quick Godfather story, and that is one of my favorite writers, not a crime writer, was Bruce J. Friedman, and I got to meet him once, and I've heard this
Oh, he's so great and so funny.
I heard this story that a lot of these guys, when they came here in the 50s, Bruce J. Friedman, Mario Puzo, my friend John Bowers, who died a few months ago, they all worked for this sleazy men's magazine. They would they would put out issues, with uh, girls, scantily clad girls on the cover or whatever. And Bruce was the editor in chief of that particular magazine. And so two of his writers were John and Mario Puzo, John
Mm.
Bowers. And I'd heard the story, and I asked Bruce, and he said it's absolutely true that he was approached one day by Puzo, and Puzo said, "I've just finished this novel about the mob. What do you think of as a title, The Godfather?" And Bruce thinks about it, and he says, "No, no, too domestic." So fortunately, he did
Yeah,
not listen to him,
yeah.
and
Thank God they didn't call it The Godfather. That never would have succeeded.
right, that's right.
That's
Um,
funny.
yeah.
Okay.
I'd love to know. I wonder what the title was of the magazine where they worked. Was it sort of like Stag
I
magazine
could
or
find out. I'm
Men's
sure because I
Men's
actually know someone
Life?
who is alive who magazines, like True Detective or whatever. But I can find it out, Jim, because as I said, I met someone who was younger than those guys who actually worked with them.
So, there any more films on your
Oh,
list?
yes, definitely. Um, Casino, another Scorsese.
Mm.
Heat, Michael Mann. Um, Charlie Varick with a very unlikely crime person, Walter Matthau in the lead. Internal
I've
Affair.
never heard of that film. It's called Charlie
Oh,
Varick?
yeah, watch it. It's really good. It's on Netflix or one of those things you can find it.
Is it
Um,
contemporary? How
well,
old
he
is it? It
or
couldn't be if it's Walter Matthau.
yeah, it's only as contemporary as Walter Matthau, but he did it later in his career. Um, and then Internal Affairs with Richard Gere. Um, and 2 by uh, Hitchcock, North by Northwest and To Catch a Thief. So those would be, there are others that are really great, but those would be the top ones for me.
I would
Uh,
I would I one I would add, and I wonder if you've ever seen this film, The Big Clock, directed by
oh
John
yeah,
Friedel,
well,
starring
and
Rupert Lamb.
was written. I have the original novel. It was written by a poet, Kenneth Thiering. It may have been the only novel that he wrote. Ray Milland was in the movie, right?
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
only Ray Milland, but Elsa Lanchester,
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
formerly of
and
Bride of
and well,
Frankenstein, who
No,
Charles
plays this
Laughton.
she plays
and
a dizzy
mhm.
artist,
Yeah,
and
and Kenneth
they
Thiering,
ask for a
really
they
good
ask
poet.
for a composite
One
photo
of
of someone,
one of
the
my
police,
favorite films. Yeah.
and she produces a cubist image of what
Oh,
she
yeah, that's
interprets
right. It's a
the
great
Both.
movie.
What's the one with Robert Mitchum where he has fear tattooed on his finger?
Oh, Night of the Hunter.
Yeah, Night of the. That's a great one too. Yeah, there are so many older. There's some people now, and my friend Ross teaches screenwriting that will not watch black and white films.
Oh,
We have a generation
perish the
now
thoughts, they
who will
ain't
not
right.
watch really, and even contemporary films that are black and white. They will not watch them.
Shame or well, it's their loss. Their
Absolutely.
loss. Their loss. By the way,
So wait,
go
I'd like to hear more about that. So Ross teaches this class,
Mhm.
and
They
he gets resistance from his audience because
well,
the films are in black and white.
a lot of the classic films like The Third Man, he will take it up, use it as an example of why it's such a great screenplay. And these kids, they're not always kids. I mean, we're talking about maybe even 20s and 30s and early 40s, have never seen it because they don't like watching black and white films. And I think, for instance, the latest Ripley series, um,
Right.
that's
Well,
Done
shot
in black and white.
black and white,
Yep.
but I'm not sure
a-
they watch it.
after the film, um, Some Like It Hot came out, Billy Wilder used to ask his friends about it. He said, "What do you think of the film?" They said, "It's great, it's great." And he'd say, "Well, but what do you think of the color in it?" They said, "The color was fantastic. I loved it." And of course, the film's in black and white. People didn't even think about it. It was just a great film.
Mhm.
They didn't worry about whether it was color or black or white.
Yeah,
It was a good movie.
absolutely. I have a really short Billy Wilder story that's not mine, but it was told to me by a
Oh,
friend.
please tell me. I'm all ears for anything about
Okay,
Billy
so
Wilder.
my
Charles, you're quite the raconteur.
well,
You're not only a novelist and journalist, you're a raconteur.
no, what I am is a good listener, and and I have a good memory, at least so far. Oh, so what were we talking about? Billy Wilder, right. I have a friend, Richard Dubin, who, was a professor up at Syracuse, with me, at Newhouse, and he was a very, very successful sitcom writer and, did movie cleanups and all that, and he hadn't worked for a while, and he called his agent and said, "Let's meet and let's talk about this, I need work." So they met at a restaurant, and they met at a restaurant where one of the famous restaurants, I don't know if it was Ma Maison or not, but it was one of those famous restaurants where there was a banquette. You sat at a banquette, and then someone would sit opposite you on a chair. And so Richard was and 3 or 4 and the place was pretty empty. 3 or 4 tables to the left was Billy Wilder having lunch with someone. So Richard is talking to his agent and he's complaining about, where's the work, blah, blah, blah. And his agent stops and says, "See that guy over there, Billy Wilder? He hasn't worked in a couple of years either." And Richard had no leg to stand on after that.
When was that? About what?
Oh, it probably,
Later in Billy Wilder's career.
yeah, it was probably toward the end.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
'cause-
well, he used to go into the office every day,
yeah,
and he would work try to get projects started, and, he was, people wouldn't hire him. He died at the age of, I think, 96, so he was he was one in your
And
how
in the context of crime, I mean, he's produced some terrific crime movies. Double Jeopardy, Sunset Boulevard,
right,
just interesting,
Double
funny,
Indemnity.
right.
gripping.
But this generation
Double
probably
Indemnity, thank
don't know who
you.
he is.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he was he was pretty cynical,
Yeah,
and a great director. I wanted to ask you, going back to those twin pillars of, detective fiction, Dashiell Hammett and Raymond Chandler. Am I right in remembering that Raymond Chandler was British, was English, and he'd moved to
I think so.
LA?
I think he was born.
He was definitely English. Yes, yes.
So, did he I don't know his books well enough to know if there's any sort of English sensibility in them. Would you know that he was English born if you didn't,
I
if you just read his work?
I haven't read all his work, but I don't think so. I mean, he was
Yeah, well,
Americanized.
I've read every single thing by him,
Okay, so
and
you can answer this,
you
Jim.
would think it is some, people talking right off the mid-century in Los Angeles. I mean, you wouldn't get a sense of anything English about it, except maybe just precision of language.
well, I write plays in British, and I would hope that no one would detect from them that that was an American, upstart writing. If you live in a place long enough, you should be able to write
Mhm.
in the dialect of the local
One of your books, one of your early books, JD, has my favorite title ever. Satanic Nurses.
Um, Reporting nurses.
And I have a copy. Is it still in print?
It's available. You can find it. When I was giving copies to the nursing staff or telling people at the hospital that I'm at a lot, and they say, "Oh, what was your book called?" And I say, the satanic nurses, and they would do a double take because they thought
Well,
I was a mean book of nursing staff.
right, but
Thought
it,
you were flirting with the nurses.
for people who don't know, it was a pun on satanic verses.
Yes,
Uh,
yeah,
but
yeah.
a really clever
I'll
title.
see you in both. That's right. That's right.
It's right
Good.
up there with Swann's last song, I would say.
Yeah, but the funny thing was, Jim, I never wanted to write another crime novel. So it didn't occur to me to, to have a series where the first book is Swan's last song. So I just ignored that. But all the books have Swan in the title, like Swan Dives In and Swan's Lake of Despair. Um,
Well, it's a great character
there's
name.
ran out of good titles using Swan.
Was there any Proustian sort of resonance in
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. People thought uh, one of the titles is Swan's Way Out, which is a direct
That's
uh,
I love.
from Proust.
Well, that's brilliant. So, Jim, you don't have a headquake for us this week, but I've got one, and that's here in England. We're all celebrating the centenary of Sir David Attenborough, who's 100 years old. I think his birthday was yesterday, and that's a huge event here. And he's still working, and so a salute to him. And Charles, that's a great list. Are there any more? Sorry, did I interrupt you on your
No,
phone?
no, I
Was there
think
one
I
more?
pretty much covered it, and there are so many now that we talk about it, there's so many of those black and white films, the crime, the noir films that are great, but I only had, so much,
I
time
I have
left.
to say, anyone who refuses to watch a black and white movie is just
A
limiting
jerk.
on their own enjoyment. It's just so silly. Um, I guess there's no book equivalent to that. Are there some people who refuse to read, you know, paperbacks? They only read hardcovers.
I don't
And
have
I
it.
don't know what the equivalent would be in book forms.
Mhm.
I
No,
won't read it
the
book in time.
equivalent is the equivalent is that no one reads books anymore. That's
Oh,
the
no, I'm not say that. Say it ain't so. I don't know. I was at a cafe yesterday. A woman came in with her 2 young children. Her son was about 6, her daughter was 4, and you won't believe what they were doing at the table. They were reading books. They were both reading books, and I congratulated the woman for good mothering, and she was very pleased to hear that. I wasn't sure if it would come across as patronizing, but it's just such a rare sight, but I said, "Yes, get them reading early, not on phones." So there's hope. I hope there's hope in that those 2 will grow up to be great readers of all
anyway,
I
kinds.
think that I
you
think
inter
that counts for 2 head quakes for you, JB.
I was
I haven't
wondering, Matt,
What,
we
Charles,
interrupt
do you have a head quake?
wait.
Just to
Yeah.
remind our audience that head quake is a cross between a headache and an earthquake. It's something that's we've observed during the week that merits discussion.
Alright, I'll take that as my second headquake. It was just good
Charles,
to
do you have
see.
one?
Is
That's
Richard Attenborough still alive?
David Attenborough.
Right, right. Is Richard still alive?
Yes.
Oh,
Richard Attenborough is no longer with us. David Attenborough just turned 100. Richard would have been the older brother.
well, mhm.
But David's still is still here and still working and a presence on the BBC. And he's the one person we talked about it in our earlier episode about national treasures. He's the one guy, the one person in Britain that everyone kind of can agree on that they like. He's above politics and he's for the environment and animals, and it's just hard to argue with. So don't even try. He's a good one.
Don't try, Charles. Don't try to
Okay.
argue.
Don't try to argue. Charles, thank you so much
Oh,
for
guys,
being our
fun.
first guest,
Mm,
and it's been a great discussion.
mm.
And Jim, anything you want to add?
It's great that we could have some old friends together in this format to talk about what we like and what we don't like.
Sounds great. Anytime you want me back, it's fun.
Right. We'd love to have you back. So that's all this week from Boomer Has It. I'm JB Muller in London.
I'm Jim Jalamas in Brooklyn,
And
and
Charles
we've had
Salzberg
Charles Salzberg.
from the Upper West Side of Manhattan.
Thanks, everyone. Okay.
Bye,
I'll be
guys.
Right.